Hello, class. Welcome back to Contemporary Issues in Anthropological Theory. So, web of significance, we are going back to Mary Douglas. That we're going to expand about Mary Douglas, and we're going to know more about symbolic anthropology and interpretative term. Welcome to the class. In today's topic, we're going to discuss about critique of psychological interpretations, bodily orifices and social pollution, caste purity and the body in India, group survival and integrity, sexuality, psychology and purity, food, cooking and danger. One of the very interesting part from Mary Douglas' side is that she rejected psychological and especially psychoanalytic explanation for public bodily rituals. One of the key features of her rejection is that she is not over relying on the explanation of the psychoanalytic explanations. Rather, such as those that involved mutilation, that treated them as attempts to solve individual psychological problem. But individuals are never outside of the collective, their particular culture and society. So that is a very significant part you should be focusing on. Such explanation fit well within a racialized worldview once common in Europe and North America that believed that non-Western so-called primitive peoples were akin to children or mentally ill who did not have the level of cognitive, cultural, and the technological development to address their anxieties rationally and so acted out through seemingly bizarre rituals. So, bizarre rituals from the perspective, from the ethnocentric perspective of the Europe and North American scholars. So, that is a wonderful, wonderful insight from Mary Douglas' part. One other key feature that Mary Douglas argued that there was no sound justification to associate public collective rituals with individual anxieties. Indeed, most evidence suggests that no such individual anxieties exist in a general sense, such as ritual adherence of a human waste is not necessarily accompanied by individual care or secrecy over defecation everywhere. She also argued that psychological explanation cannot account for cultural variation. Isn't it evident? While bodily practices are common, different communities emphasizes different dimensions of body and how body would be performed. What aspect of the body would be deemed as pure and what would be recognized as polluted. These are varied across the culture. Douglas argued that all margins are symbolically dangerous, they are points of unreliability and maintain the structural integrity of reality. Human bodily orifices are symbolized as particularly vulnerable, and matter issuing from them are marginal and powerful dangerous. This can include split blood, milk, urine, feces, and more. Other bodily marginal matter include skin, nail, hair clippings, sweat, etc. She argued that rituals surrounding such marginal matter must be understood with reference to margins in general rather than such matter in themselves. A food for thought is that when you give blood, or even in the case of our daily practices in Bangladeshi culture, when somebody cuts their hair, many of the cases they took that hair and mm, go take it to their home because and manage it by themselves. Why they do that? Do you have any idea? So, thus, the sheer range of cultural variation is not in itself a problem. Pollution might be associated with menstruation or death, with etc., or saliva. In some cases, dead body are considered as polluted, but in many other countries and culture, that not necessarily the truth. So Douglas identifies four kinds of social pollution associated with the vulnerability of margins: danger pressing on external boundaries, danger from transgressing the internal lines of system, danger in the margins of the lines, danger from internal contradiction. In the excerpt that we are reading, Douglas uses caste system in India and specifically the Kurds, the Kudavas, a land-owning marital jati from Kudagaon in modern-day Karnataka, India, to analyze how bodily boundaries are used to symbolize danger to community boundaries. Take the following with a grain of salt. According to Douglas sources, Kudavas appear to be obsessed with the fear of dangerous impurities, treating the body like a beleaguered town. Anything issuing from the body is be avoided, with re-entry being the most dangerous source of pollution. So when if you parallelly think that in the case of feces, when something is out from your body, then put it back in your body is deemed dangerous, but not in all cases. As in the case of blood, we often donate blood, we exchange blood, right? Why is that so? So Douglas argues that such ideas of purity and pollution reoccur throughout the Indian caste system, which can be characterized as a hierarchy of relative purity. Accordingly, those who belong to the lower impure castes are ordained to ensure that the higher castes are free of bodily impurities. That is why they are tasked with dealing with the marginal matter, from cutting hair to collecting waste, and are, by extension, themselves considering polluting to those above them. As you can see, the sense of hierarchy and power and the distribution of what is much more job for the pure and hierarchies, and what are the job for not so pure, polluted, quote unquote, non hierarchies, are based on every societies, right, in their contextual manner. Take the example of like what you're doing right now. Oh, I'm doing nothing much. I'm just doing uh, part-time job in the uh, food joint. So what does it mean? Is this job is not elite or that much acceptable job? Why some jobs are dealt like, okay, these jobs are much more accepted, some jobs are not so much accepted? Why these things are happening? So Mary Douglas gives us a very deep insight of understanding this. Douglas further argued that because they were an apparently isolated community and positioned relatively high up in the caste hierarchy, ritual anxiety about bodily orifices for the Kodavas also symbolized anxiety over the need to protect the unity and integrity of a minority group. Mm. She argued using analogies with the Israelis, Israelites, that communities that saw themselves as threatened minorities tended to symbolize threats to the community in terms of threats of bodily pollution. Isn't it the case of any everyday or even religious ritual? If you don't have ozu, you cannot do that, you would be impure. If you are going to the mosque, then you are touched by a dog, things will happen like that. Why this kind of boundaries are functioning in the society would be a very good food for thought for you. So Douglas argued that matter related to digestion and procreation were more likely to be used to symbolize social processes and relations. Thus, female sexuality is especially tightly regulated in the Indian caste system, since caste is transmitted biologically through the mother, whose sexual behavior could thus be point of vulnerability. If woman has a child by a lower caste man, the child will have lower caste blood but will nevertheless belong to the mother's caste, which has now become polluted. Thus, there are clear double standards for sexual offenses for men versus women. While male sexuality is nowhere near as tightly regulated, semen is still symbolically important, is not to be wasted, right? So Douglas suggested that both male and female physiologies are symbolized as vessels of vital fluids, where females carry pure fluids that cannot be contaminated, males carry precious fluids that cannot be wasted. Douglas argues that the apparent concern with the purity of cooked food within the Indian caste system is related to the possibility of pollution through a bodily orifice. For Douglas, even though the caste system ultimately rests on a hierarchical division of labor, where the work performed by a caste symbolizes its purity, food cannot be produced without the combined labor of multiple castes. Ritualized purifying cooking thus acts as a symbolic break from such mixture of castes. She argues that this kind of anxiety over food tends to be more pronounced where communities feel the need to defend themselves, right? At the same time, from my experience, when you are a Muslim in a country where eating pork and drinking alcohol is a very common thing, then for many Muslims it becomes a play of anxiety to show that these are our boundaries and defend themselves. So, thus, to conclude, the rituals enact the form of social relations in giving these relations visible expression. They enable people to know their own society. The rituals work upon the body politic through the symbolic medium of the physical body. Thus, what actually Douglas is arguing is that this body is in itself a center for meaning, not only for individually but also collectively, and these are not not only can be analyzed by individual European or American psychoanalytic view. It has to be dealt with cross-cultural understanding and try to understand a physical body as a fulcrum of symbols and meaning should be understood through the understanding of purity and pollution. Thank you, my dear class. Let us discuss about things in the class. Looking forward to. See you soon.